Hook, wake up. We're recording.
Oh no, this is Rico and Hook.
I mean, you have any nice dreams?
Nah, man, I had a dream you clone yourself and put yourself on stage. You called the show Rico and Rico, and
Definitely.
It was awful.
Probably be a good show, I'm not going to lie.
It's terrible.
I mean, it's a little weird, but to get into the show, we're going to talk about the MLB. So to start off, Manny Machado signs an 11-year, $350 million extension, and starting in 2024, he's going to be 43 at the end of that contract. I mean, now the Padres got all these guys locked up, like Alexander Bogaerts and Fernando Tatis. What is their plan for the future?
You know, it's really hard to say. Like you said, Bogaerts, Tatis, and obviously they're trying to extend Juan Soto. They're going to have, like a retirement home as a roster in like 10 years' time. So it's hard to say what their plan is for the future, but obviously with these long contracts, they can always trade away these players. I don't know what to say about this signing because it was so bizarre, especially with Machado saying he wanted out of San Diego just a few weeks ago. So, it kind of befuddles me how this kind of signing went down.
Yeah, and I mean, just to stay with Manny Machado also, to start off spring training in one of the very first at-bats, Manny Machado starts his first at-bat 0-1 because of the new pitch clock that's implemented into the league. There's very different opinions across the whole entire league between coaches and players. Seems like the majority is that they do not want that to be implemented. But a lot of the pitchers see it as an advantage. We saw Max Scherzer talk about it a lot. But it's just funny how Manny Machado signs a big extension and then already starts out 0-1.
Yeah, I mean, we saw players like, a few players like Luis Garcia for the Astros had to change up his entire windup just because of the new pitch clock and the new balk rules. They have to take a lot less time to get through the windup, get through those pitches, and it's definitely going to throw off hitters, but I can see it throwing off pitchers as well because they have to change up their entire pitching style just to, get things done before the pitch clock. So it's definitely an interesting rule to implement. I like that games are shorter now, but at the same time, it's definitely going to throw off the players.
Yeah, staying with spring training games, Jason Dominguez, we've talked about him a couple times on when he's going to get that starting spot for the Yankees. Big home run in his Yankees debut. Along with a couple of those Yankees, they're hitting home runs down there in Florida. How do you see Jason Dominguez playing in the next couple of years?
I mean, I'm just glad that, he's gotten the start early on. He's only 19 years old. I can see him possibly coming up at September call-ups this season. If not, in 2024, I would like to see him play up. I mean, he's been compared to players like Mike Trout, players like Brian Reynolds. He's a five-tool guy. I'm really excited to see what he can do in the bigs. And obviously, that first spring training game that he had with the Yankees is a big sign of things to come. So I have really high hopes on Jason Dominguez.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more with you. Just the young talent the Yankees have. Talked about Anthony Volpe in previous episode too. Another guy that's been starting to get playing time. I can see him being on that first 40-man roster or definitely in September call-ups for him. Sticking with spring training still, a couple of guys to throw out there, Cody Bellinger, Josh Donaldson, Max Muncy, are all looking for those comeback seasons that they had when they were in their prime careers. Cody Bellinger with the Dodgers, same thing with Josh Donaldson, MVP years. How do you think some of those guys can get back to their old form?
Well, I can see Cody Bellinger obviously being with a new team. I think he can improve upon, the faults that he had in LA. I think, it's a new atmosphere. Chicago is not as big of a market as Los Angeles is. However, Chicago is a big major city, so he's going to draw in fans. He's going to be able to, kind of get that chip off of his shoulder from being in LA. And then moving into Donaldson, he's heading into his second year of his contract with the New York Yankees. So hopefully he can turn things around. Obviously, he's no 2015 MVP Josh Donaldson, but hopefully he can, turn things around. He can be able to actually hit well. He's a great defender, but he has recently just been terrible hitting-wise, so I'm really hoping that he can turn things around, especially coming from a Yankee fan. And then Max Muncy, obviously 2021, he had an amazing season, over 30 home runs, hit over 250, but this last year he barely eclipsed the 160 mark batting average-wise. He was benched multiple times. He was sent down to the minor leagues. He's a veteran player, so I was just surprised to see all that happened to him throughout this last season. And, as a fan of Muncy's, I think he's an all-around great player. Just had a down year. I'm really hoping that he can turn things around.
Yeah, just can keep going with the MLB. A lot of young stars out there have been playing in spring training, getting their time to prove themselves, and we see Gunnar Henderson at the top of that top 5 list across of basically all of analysts MLB baseball. How do you see Gunnar Henderson playing an impact in the Orioles season?
Well, I think he's going to be the starting shortstop opening day. Obviously, they just drafted Jackson Holliday. Yep. He struggled a bit through his 2 or 3 games so far in spring training, but Gunnar Henderson has been on the come up ever since he got drafted. I mean, he's just went straight through the minors. I think he skipped Double A. I believe he went straight from High A to Triple A, and he's just been an amazing hitter. He's a great defender, and just like Jason Dominguez, obviously he plays shortstop, but he still is a 5-tool player. He's got great speed, great hitting, great defending. And I think all around he's going to be a big change to the locker room for the Baltimore Orioles, especially being a team that's struggling, yet they are on the come up compared to last year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely all agree, and that AL East is definitely going to be a tough division this year. With the Orioles on the come up, Blue Jays on the come up, Yankees and Red Sox kind of staying in their own lane. It's going to be an interesting year. But that'll do it for our segment on Major League Baseball. Don't go anywhere. We'll bring you our Take 5 segment when we come back.
So next up, we've got one of our newest segments that has quickly become a fan favorite called Take 5. The way this segment works is Rico and I have 2 picks in which we will give you our top 5s. Last time we did our picks in 5 years' time, but this week we'll be focusing on the present day. So to start off, you have your top 5 NFL MVP candidates. Rico, take it away.
So for number 1, I think this is kind of obvious. Patrick Mahomes is going to be my number 1 pick. Number 2, sticking with the 2 QBs in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts. Number 3, kind of a dark horse. Seems like he was up there at the beginning of this year, and the Chargers just struggled. Justin Herbert is my number 3. Joe Burrow, I think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl next year, so he's my number 4. And then a sneaky pick, you can throw it up between, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, but I got Tyreek Hill at my number 5. I think the Dolphins are actually going to make a push in the playoffs and compete with the Bills for that division this year.
All great picks. Great to see a wide receiver in there. Surprised it wasn't my boy Garrett Wilson.
Definitely not.
Now I'm going to move into the superior sport, the NBA.
No.
I'll be talking about who I think are going to be the top 5 picks in this June's NBA draft. So first up, I got Victor Wembanyama. He's the consensus number 1 pick right now. Out of France, Metropolitans 92. He's 7'5", all around an amazing player. The stuff that he can do with his height is amazing. Next up, I got Scoot Henderson, another consensus pick at number 2. He's coming out of the G League. He's a point guard, and he can do pretty much anything you would want from a point guard and then some. Next up, I got Jarris Walker out of Houston. I personally think he's the best player in all of college basketball right now. So, being a power forward, Houston, being a great school for Jarris Walker to come out of, I think he's going number 3. Then moving into another league outside of college basketball, I got Amen Thompson, the combo guard from the Overtime Elite. I think he's a great all-around player. He's an amazing slasher, an amazing playmaker, an amazing defender. And just like Scoot Henderson, for a guard, he can really do everything and then some. And then number 5, I got Brandon Miller. I think he's up there with Jarris Walker for some of the best players in all of college basketball. Obviously, with recent controversy, I think his name is kind of moved down the draft board. But for right now, I'm going to keep him at the number 5 spot because of how talented he is.
Some good picks all around. I think I recognize maybe like one of those names. But to move into the most knowledgeable topic, we've got both top 5 in the world of baseball, and it'll be a top 5 World Series candidates in this upcoming MLB season. So number 1, seems like the consensus over the past 5 years, Dodgers are number 1. And then I got the Braves at number 2. The Mets at number 3 after their signing of 2 38-year-old pitchers. And I got the Astros number 4. Obviously, young roster. You can't really go wrong with them, unfortunately. And then at number 5, I got the Yankees. They're always going to be competitive every year. And I think the signing of Carlos Rodon is really going to help their pitching rotation.
All great picks. Love the diss on the Mets. It's a daily diss that I have to make on Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. So next up, I got also in the world in the MLB, the top 5 American League Rookie of the Year candidates for this upcoming season. And number 1, I got Gunnar Henderson. We spoke about him before, the number 1 prospect in all of Major League Baseball right now, the shortstop for the Orioles. Right behind him, on the come up, I don't see him being an opening day starter, but still an amazing rookie coming up is Daniel Espino, this starting pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians. All around great stuff from him too. Next up, I got our boy Anthony Volpe, the shortstop for the Yankees. We all know about him and how talented he's been the past few years in the minors. Then I got Tristan Cassis. He's a corner infielder for the Red Sox, mainly plays first base. All-around great hitter, great stuff defensively as well. So I see him being at number 4. And then right behind him is fellow Guardians player compared with our boy Daniel Espino, George Valera, outfielder, amazing stuff all around. Just like Jason Dominguez, who we mentioned before, he is a 5-tool player, similar to Gunnar Henderson too, but being in the outfield, Guardians need outfielders, so I got him at number 5. And that'll wrap things up for this segment. Don't go anywhere. We will bring you a fun duology of segments in the second half when we come back. Welcome back. As you can see, we have a different setup for the second half of this week's episode. Joining us, as always, on set is our social media representative and Bryce Harper historian, Marisa Toulas.
Thank you for having me.
This is our segment, Ask the Analyst. And like always, Marisa and I will be answering questions that Hook asked us and giving our 2 cents on topics from around the world of sports.
So to begin, Damian Lillard just dropped a career-high 71 points, matching Donovan Mitchell's that he scored earlier on this season. So Marisa, I know you know a bit about the NBA. How do you feel about the very high-scoring games recently, and do you feel like it's kind of ruining the NBA, kind of how fans see high-scoring games?
I think it goes both ways. I like seeing a lot of action on offense, but at the same time, I feel like defense is completely lost. Like, we're really not seeing much hustle and working hard on the defensive end, and we're just seeing all these guys throwing up 50, 60, 70 points. And every night I feel like I look at the NBA scores and they're higher, 145, 125. It's crazy. I feel like defense is a lost part of the NBA, and it's something that is needed, and it's kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I entirely agree. I mean, just look at some players that are averaging 30 points a game that you didn't even hear of 2 years ago. So I think that with very high-scoring games, it's definitely a big change, but I think I'm certainly getting used to it, but it's definitely a change from 5-10 years ago when the best players were only averaging about 20. So now moving into the NFL, we got Tom Brady. Obviously, he retired, no longer with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what do you think about this Buccaneers team? Do you think they're going to trade up for a draft pick to pick a quarterback in the draft, or do you think they're going to sign one in free agency?
I think they're going to sign one in free agency. I mean, I think the draft would be better. A draft pick would be better long-term, long run. But I think that their fans and their fan base, they're going to be so eager to be good again that they're not going to want to wait to develop a quarterback with the team. I think they're going to try and get a guy who's solid, knows what he's doing, and that's what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Bucs overall that they definitely are going to sign a quarterback in free agency. It seems like over the past couple of years, last time they drafted a quarterback was Jameis Winston back in like 2015.
We all know how that went.
Yeah, obviously it didn't work. And most of the time, I mean, their coaching staff has pretty much been the same since last year besides Bruce Arians retiring over the past winter. But I do think that like a guy like Derek Carr is a really good option out there for him. And I think besides Derek Carr, they're going to have to pay a quarterback up to $45-50 million a year. And maybe I can see them. They always seem to take a quarterback in the late round, and hopefully they can get lucky with a guy like that too.
Yeah, so sticking with the NFL, our girl Rihanna just put on a great performance at the 2023 halftime show in the Super Bowl. Obviously, we're just under a year out, but, you know, if you had to make your pick, who would you like to see in next year's halftime show?
I would like to see Kanye West, but I know that's not going to happen because it's a very controversial topic and the people don't like him. But I feel like I think we need to stick to the trend of pop music. I think it's more versatile. When you step off to country and that stuff, not a lot of people like it. Maybe Miss Ariana Grande. I know Taylor Swift projected it this year, but
I'm just waiting for Drake to come on any type of halftime show.
He's too.
Yeah, he's just very hesitant to all those like kind of like public concerts. But yeah, Drake's my number one choice.
I mean, all around great choices. I thought Ariana Grande is a great choice, being one of the biggest pop stars in the world. You picked Drake, an amazing performer. So, I mean, overall, some great picks for next year's halftime show. My personal pick, it's kind of a interesting one. I got Ice Spice. She's blowing up right now. And
I agree.
If I had to make my pick, I'm trying to see Ice Spice at the Super Bowl next year. I know she's a great performer, and I know she'd kill it. So next up, moving into Major League Baseball, obviously the pitch clock was just introduced into spring trading games. We saw some players already getting automatic strikes and violations for the pitch clock. So how do you feel? Do you think it's going to kind of boost ratings because of the shorter games, or do you think that the MLB will lose ratings because of the shorter games?
I think it could split half and half. A lot of people have been complaining for so long about how long baseball games are, how much they don't like watching it. But I think that that's what baseball is. If you don't like it, don't watch it. That's the way I feel. But I think that for the true people who do watch it and like it, it's going to be very controversial. I don't think it's going to go well. I think it'll hurt the real MLB fans.
Yeah, no.
I think Jake might like it though because he's a little bit of a fraud.
No, I completely disagree with the pitch clock rule. There's no reason for it to be implemented into the game. Baseball is supposed to be played out for a long time. It's just how it's always been, so I don't see the sudden change, bringing more fans into the game. Yeah, it makes sense. They want to make more money. It seems like at the end of the day, that's how it always works. But I just completely disagree with the pitch clock.
And now, keeping with the MLB, we've got some 3 veteran players for our favorite team, the New York Yankees, notably Josh Donaldson, Aaron Hicks, and IKF, all had horrific years last year. So what do you think? Do you think these 3 players can turn things around and revive their careers? And if so, who do you think has the best chance at reviving their career after these 3 terrible seasons?
I personally think all three of them need to be scrapped. I'm been a Yankee fan for so long. I'm sick of it. The only one I think who can pick it up and turn it around is Donaldson. I think he's got some fire in him. He's a good infielder, and he's clutch when you need him. But the rest of Hicks and IKF, I like IKF, but it's just we're the Yankees. Like I keep saying, we need a shortstop. Hicks got to go. He shouldn't even be out there. He should be in AAA.
Yeah, I agree with the Hicks point, but Josh Donaldson is also gone. He should be not even near the Yankees anymore. IKF is the only one that should be staying around, as he can play multiple different positions. You can't push Josh Donaldson anywhere else, and Aaron Hicks can't stay in the field. IKF early report came out today where he can play the outfield, he can play second base, he can play third base. So when you have a guy who can play 6 positions, he can be your utility guy on the bench no matter what. So IKF should be the one out of the 3.
Yeah, so IKF, he played shortstop last year, struggled defensively, but he is a Gold Glove third baseman, did play catcher in the minors, and like you said, he can play the outfield if needed to. We saw that from him in the minors with the Rangers system. So I agree that IKF should be staying, but as a bench piece, especially if he can pick up things hitting-wise. And that'll do it for our Ask the Analyst segment. Before you click off the video, stick around for the finale, our Mystery Box segment, coming at you when we come back. So to wrap things up here on the show, we have the return of a fan-favorite segment that we like to call the Mystery Box. For this segment, we are pleased to be joined by a very special guest, the tissue box, just a literal tissue box. And since he can't speak, Marisa, would you like to explain the segment to the viewers?
So inside the tissue box is a bunch of topics that we don't know, only Jason knows, and we're going to blindly pick them, and then we have to give our opinion, how we feel about the topic, the player, the team, whatever, right on the spot. So I will go first. Do the Knicks make it past round 1? Oh.
I'll answer for you now.
I'm sorry, Jason, but my answer is no. It's a no. They're not strong enough yet. But better performance recently, but they're still not strong enough right now.
How do you feel?
I can take it. New York sports fan, I can take the heartbreak.
Yep. All right. I'll go next.
Too bad there's no tissues in this box for you.
It's unfortunate. It's been emptied out.
Patrick Kane traded to the New York Rangers. Can you name 5 NHL teams off the top of your head?
Of course you got that one.
Yeah, I don't think so. We can go with the Devils. Do the Rangers count, or no? You're not going to count that one.
I would count them.
Devils, Rangers, Sharks,
Islanders.
Penguins. She cheated. Islanders. I'm not going to count that one. And Avalanche. Very
He
impressed
named
myself.
5 NHL teams. That is the most impressive
We
thing
practiced
I've
that
seen. I'll say I can't get my
months ago, and I can only name 1.
Okay, so next up, I have my topic. Can Shohei Ohtani continue his production at 2 positions, or will he eventually fail? So obviously, being a designated hitter and a pitcher, it's going to be tough. Obviously, he hasn't dealt with injuries in the past, but with Tommy John being something that's very common in pitchers these days, especially splitter pitchers like he is coming from Japan, I just don't see him continuing the MVP level production that he's been putting up these past 2 years. Obviously, I think he's going to go down as one of the greatest players in baseball history by the time he retires, but I think eventually he'll have to pick one. He'll have to either be a DH or a pitcher, and right now it's looking like if he had to choose, he would be an outfielder or a DH because he's such a talented hitter.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that just about wraps things up for the show.
Tune in next week for another installment of the #1 weekly sports talk show on Wayne Hills TV. I'm Marisa.
I'm Rico.
And I'm Hook, and this has been Rico and Hook.